Okay, we got everybody? Look at that, we have a quorum. Okay. So do I say it first or open the meeting first, Pete? Okay. This is the Thursday, December 2nd, 2021 meeting of the City of Westfield, Massachusetts City Council Natural Resources Committee, which I call to order at 5:31 and begin by reading the following. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 20, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing a strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the City of Westfield City Council's Natural Resources Committee will be conducted via remote participation. Specific information can be found on the City of Westfield website at www.cityofwestfield.org. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so by tuning into Channel 15 or westfieldtv.org online. No in-person attendance of meetings will be permitted. That's no longer true, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. I'm going to choke on that. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post the city's website on audio recording, transcript, or comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So agenda item number 2, roll call. Councillor Alley?
Here.
And Councillor Morganelli?
Here.
Thank you very much. And let the record, so I believe Councillor Sullivan is also joining us tonight. Number 3, reading of the record. Both of you should have the minutes for November 4th in your email. Do I hear a motion? Have you had a chance to read them?
Yes. Motion to accept the minutes of the last
Second.
meeting of November 4th.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call vote. Councillor Alley?
Yes.
Councillor Morganelli?
Yes.
And Councillor Mello, yes. Section 4, public participation. Is there anyone joining us tonight that would like to publicly participate? Please indicate by raising your hand or unmuting and speaking up.
You have a letter from Councillor Matthews-Kane.
We do indeed, and a letter from Councillor Harris. Would you like to read those into the record, or would you like to include them in the minutes for the discussion at the full council?
I think it would probably be better in front of the full council. It's up to you.
Sure, we can have a, would you like to make that in the form of a motion?
Motion to read the 2 letters, one from Councillor Harris and the other one from Councillor Matthews-Kane, to be read at the council meeting on December 2nd.
Second.
Discussion also included in our minutes, yes?
And to include it in our minutes, yes. Thank you.
Motion made and seconded. Motion as amended. Would you like to second the motion as amended, Councilor Morganelli?
Yeah, well, I already seconded the motion, so we.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so roll call vote. Councilor Alley?
Yes.
Councilor Morganelli?
Yes.
And Councilor Mello, yes. Okay, so we will add those to the minutes and read them at the meeting for City Council for the entire council to hear. And I believe that letter from Councilor Matthews-Kane was from a constituent in her ward. Okay, so motion to close public participation.
Motion to close public participation.
There is just point of order. There's no one
sorry.
here. There's no one else here for public participation.
Mrs. Oxen, would you like to speak?
There is someone here.
Yes, I would like to talk about vacant apartment credits and also the senior discount on sewer. Do you want it now or when you're talking about sewer rates?
Now would be the only chance for public participation.
Okay, vacant apartment credits are for sewer and solid waste. And there seems to be a lot of landlords going in and getting credits back on sewer. And it does affect Jeff Gamelli in his budget because he's planning on these houses, they get $114 credit. Don't know if you're aware of how many people are going in and getting that on a monthly basis, which I think that should stop. And also the senior discount on sewer, which is roughly 70%. I don't feel it's fair to the enterprise account that people are getting a 70% discount. So I'd like it adjusted or done away with. We don't give any senior discounts on real estate bills. We don't give any senior discount on water. And those are, and we don't give any senior discount on gas and electric. I don't see why this enterprise account is giving away money. And it's $330,000 a year, which over a 3-year period, that's $1 million. I just feel the enterprise account should be looked out for. It's revenues in, expenses out, and someone got really generous and started giving away our money. So if someone wants to give a discount to the seniors, let's give it on the real estate bills. Or let's see it come from free cash and go into the sewer account. So if you want to give $330,000 from free cash every year and give it to Jeff Gamelli's enterprise account, that'd be fine with me. So that's all I needed to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak at public participation? Counselors?
Kristen, I'll speak.
Oh.
I'm
Floor is
Lisa
yours,
Oxon,
Lisa.
341 Steiger Drive. There's accounts on the sewer that have inactive sewers. So they had a sewer and it looks like that the house sold, and then the new owner did not get the sewer fee on their bill. So there's multiples of these houses that aren't being charged for sewer for years and years. And we should be looking into those accounts to make sure everyone who is using sewer is being billed for sewer.
Lisa, is that list collated somewhere?
No, we just been finding them as we were doing our water study.
Okay, and has that list been shared with Fran and Jeff? Would you mind doing
No,
so?
because we didn't feel we should be turning in our neighbors who are getting the free sewer.
Okay, thank you.
So a question, Madam Chair. So these are to Lisa, these are homes that where their sewer is now inactive. Is that what you're saying?
Or is in use that the family's using it, but on the bill it shows as inactive, or on their tie card online it shows as inactive, so their bill does not get charged for sewer.
Why would it show inactive if they have sewer and it's being used?
It's just how the house sold. The new owner didn't get it's in the accounting error of your database that it didn't get converted over to the new owner. We can name 2 just in within 6 houses of us.
Counselor Alley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think Fran's on this. I've got too many things on my screen right now, but so Fran, is this something that we can look into and see it at our end?
Absolutely.
And provide a list to the council?
Right, and it might be can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so, yeah, absolutely. That's something we can look into.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member here that would like to speak during public participation? Okay, counselors, now can we have the motion?
Yeah.
We have a motion on the floor. I'll second it now to close public participation.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Roll call vote. Counselor Alley?
Amen.
Counselor Morganelli?
Yes.
And Counselor Mello, yes. So the communications from departments and city officers and our new business are one and the same today. We have the presentation and discussion of the sewer rate increases voted on by the Water Commission, which originated from a vote from the council from 11/4/2021. And so Director Kane, Jeff, who wants to start us off?
I guess I could, and then go to Jeff, and then to the folks from Time Bond. So this is similar to how we did it with the water rate increase. Only the in that instance, the board has the vote on that. This instance, we had Time Bond do a study which they're going to present to tonight. And I think as far as some housekeeping things, I think in order for a vote for you guys would have to be a resolution, which that will be forthcoming. There's a little bit of lag on our end, I guess, on that. And yeah, I think that's about it. Jeff, do you have anything to say?
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Natural Resources Committee, for, of course, having us. I'm Jeff Gamelli, Deputy Superintendent of the Wastewater Division for the Department of Public Works. I'm at the treatment plant right now. I've been here, working for the city for almost 10 years now. Been in my position here for almost 8. Very passionate about what I do. I love working for the city and what I do, treating wastewater for the city every day. And I just hope that you guys, I appreciate you guys listening to this presentation. We've worked pretty hard over the last couple of months as a cohesive group to come up with all the proper data and all the proof to back up with what we're presenting. And, being an enterprise fund, we just have to have the proper revenue to fund our expenses. And there's many, many expenses, as everyone knows, with COVID and the rising expenses of supplies and chemicals and sludge hauling and disposal costs, gas and electricity, that were unforeseen 6 years ago when the last sewer fee proposal was passed. So the cost of everything has gone through the roof, and we have done much work here, especially at the treatment plant, to save as much money as possible with ammonia-based aeration control, saving energy, biological phosphorus removal. We've implemented in-house here to save $250,000 a year in a phosphorus removal chemical. I could go on, but I just we have done much work as possible in-house to save as much money as possible. And you can only get so much blood out of a stone. And we've tried as much as we can. And we try as much as we can every day. And I have a great team here. Very proactive preventative maintenance plan. We just try to do our best, and very proud of the treated effluent we discharge to the Westfield River at the end of the day. And very proud of our, effluent limits. Very, very seldom do we violate our National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit that we have to meet every month. So with that being said, I will transfer the floor over to Ty and Bond. Michael Schrader with Ty and Bond, and Chris Bone from Ty and Bond. I'll turn it over to them.
Okay, Chris, you good?
Yeah, Mike, take this. This is your presentation. Absolutely.
All right. So forgive me here. Sorry, I'm working on just my laptop, and let's see if I can do this. Get my screen, do this. Madam Chair, do you have a sense of how long you'd like me to go here, or a time limit?
Our hard stop is 6:30.
Okay. Okay. So 6:30. Okay. I'm going to go through at a
pretty good clip. This is the same presentation that we've been using to go through with the various, parties that have been involved, and it was the same that we used for the Water Commission. So I'm going to go through some of the stuff a little quicker. If you want to pause me, please go ahead and do so. You might need to say something because I'm not sure I will see your picture otherwise. So what I'm going to do is go through the overall process that we go through when we look at rates, evaluate rates. And, the goal here is informed decision making. So it's a transparent, data-driven process. And I'm going to go through this here. So what we look at is we're developing a financial plan, a long-term financial plan for the wastewater enterprise. And we first, we look at expenses. We want to project the expenses and the revenues for a 10-year period. And we develop a pro forma and look at that. And as Jeff just said, we look at increasing costs, projects, capital projects. Once we develop the pro forma for the existing conditions, the existing rates, we use the look back period to calibrate our model and get projections set for the future. And then we start with the existing rate structure that is in place now, and we adjust those to maintain a fund balance, desired target there. And we calculate user costs and look at equity and affordability. And then typically we'll look at a different alternative rate structure as well. And to the prior speaker's comment, it looks at the senior discount. So, and then as always, capital expenses are the biggest driver of rate increases anywhere. So when we look at the expense side, we look at, like I said, a look back period. So we're taking the budget to actuals, the reports from the city. Everything is taken as data, the data that they use to manage their enterprise, and we input that into our model and use it to do analysis and projections. And then going forward, we start with the most recent budget, which in this case is FY22, and we project off of that with, sorry, this thing's in my way, using, escalators for different costs. And then both the capital and the debt service are not projected, but they're the capital improvements or the CIP are taken from the CIP portion of the model, and then the debt service is taken from the master debt schedule. One thing I want to mention here, we'll talk about it a little bit, but the city has dedicated about $15 million of its ARPA funding to wastewater. And you'll see that included in the CIP, but in the charts and tables and figures, it doesn't show because technically the ARPA funds are outside the enterprise because they don't need to be repaid. Show as expenses, and it's just sort of outside, but we maintain the projects in the CIP so that you can see where the money's gone and where it's going to go. So I'll mention it when I get there. This is the CIP. As you can see, it's a big enterprise. There's a lot of moving parts. So this is a 10-year look. And I know they always tell you not to be the person that says, I know you can't read this, but there really is no way to get that shrunk down. But it covers everything from collection to pumping to treatment throughout the enterprise. Wastewater, it should be said, is a very capital intensive program. And as Jeff can attest to, it's also a very harsh environment for machinery and equipment. And things, do tend to wear out. In this column here, we can see the funding source. So when we say rate funded, that means it's coming out of the user rates. Some people call it pay-go or cash. Basically, it's not debt. So it's going to come out of the each year's budget and is essentially paid for by rates or out of the reserves, depending on the year. And then, so most of the projects, I'm sorry, I get the video thing gets in my way. So Most of the projects are not debt funded, so there's very little new debt coming on. A good chunk is ARPA, and then the rest is funded out of, call cash or PayGo.
Mike, let me interrupt you one second.
please do.
Counselor Alley, did you have a question?
I do on this one portion, if I may. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Madam Chair. So on the first ones, they're all like rate studies for various years and stuff like that. And these are figures, most of them are like in the millions of dollars.
Mhm.
And is that all that column? These columns are going for that they're just paying for actual studies?
No. No. I'm sorry. The source rate study 2021. That was that's I think just me being an engineer. That was the title of the document that had that data in there. So these are all engineering and construction, and most engineering and most civil projects, when they're estimated at this level, at a high budgetary level, include engineering, construction, permitting, police, all that stuff. So just to be clear, I'm sure there are some of these that are just design or have a design component, but none of these are studies. These are all projects. And you see down here the wastewater CIP. There were a couple different documents that we incorporated into this. So that's a great catch. And actually, I wasn't sure because I had forgot about that column, but I wasn't sure what you meant. But no studies.
Most money actually go toward the work. I mean, obviously engineering is extremely important with any of this stuff. But all right, that's good.
As someone said once, it's no bells and whistles. It's all concrete and steel.
Hopefully,
so this is all hard infrastructure.
All right, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, my pleasure. And that's great, Madam Chair. If you to just pause like that, we can go quick through questions and stuff. What I did do to help, I gotta do something with that, is just to give an idea where the cost was going. And that's a lot of the design of that module in the model is to show people like you, where's the money going? What, the public wants to know, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? That kind of thing. So here in the orange bars, we can see I'm going to use the little pointer here. You can see the orange is the collection system, and lighter orange is infiltration and inflow, which is basically leaky sewers where the groundwater gets into the sewers. It's a problem it's just a part of all sewer systems. Then we have pumping systems, treatment, and this just sort of shows you where the money's going at different points in the structure. It's my attempt to try to condense all those lines into something that people can absorb. So next, in similar, I just wanted to give a breakdown. This is basically the expense side of the pro forma, showing how the costs are distributed and how that changes over time. So starting with FY19, which was the beginning of the look back period, we had basically 53% of the budget, if you will, was operating costs, 23% was debt, and 24% was capital outlay. And as we go through the, as we go through here, we can see that debt goes away and basically gets replaced by some new debt and more capital projects that are the rate funded capital projects. So that just shows how the operating costs are going up at a measured increase. The existing debt drops down. The black is new debt for new projects, and the red is the rest of it, is all that that rate funded work. What's not shown here on top would be big bars for the first 3 years that would show that ARPA funding. And I thought of that just as I was reviewing and getting ready for that. But we can look back at the other numbers and I can show you what the numbers are. But because they don't hit the enterprise per se, we don't show them in our calculations or in the pro forma.
Mike, can I ask you on the previous slide, one more back, that dark blue, the treatment that's coming up. Can you talk about what that is?
Sure. So that would be sludge building, HVAC renovations, a plant upgrade, and we've put that in there. When Jeff talked about the NIPDES permit, the National Pollutant Discharge Permit, those change, and you're on a permit cycle, and the EPA looks at those permits on a watershed basis. So Westfield will be getting a new permit, and it's likely to have additional nutrient removal requirements in it. So in anticipation, and by the way, all the numbers in the future here, these are projections, based on what we know, what we see, what Jeff knows, what the DPW knows as far as what's coming. So these are all projections of what's going to happen in the future. And it's also, pump replacements, storage tank replacement, epoxy floor resurfacing, a new operating building, and a new sludge dewatering upgrade. Oh, and I left out, because the thing was here before, SRF, the state revolving fund. The city's taken advantage of that, or plans to, for a couple projects as well to get the low interest rate.
So can you tell me, does PFAS factor in to that calculation?
Currently, and Chris is our more of a PFAS expert than I am, but where we would expect to see PFAS raise its head in terms of expenses would be for the disposal of the sludge. So it comes in with the water, with the influent wastewater, and that's it. It doesn't affect the process. It doesn't affect the way the plant operates. But now when you generate the sludge or the residuals, it's still that the wonderful nature of them is the forever chemical means it's not going to just go away. So as we go in the future, we could see restrictions and increasing costs for sludge disposal, but that, Chris,
You don't yet see them adding PFAS to your NIPDES permit.
Yeah,
No.
I'll jump in there a little bit. On the sludge disposal costs, PFAS is driving the entire biosolids market right now,
Right.
in that there's fewer disposal sites.
Right.
Plus there's closing landfills. So all of that is just driving the sludge disposal cost higher. Westfield actually has they're much higher than they were a few years ago, but relative to other communities, they're still not that bad. So we project that there's going to be another jump in disposal costs in the life cycle of this sewer rate increase. So that's something that's going to be an expense. We think in another few years, it's going to be a jump. In your next NIPDES permit, what you're going to get for PFAS is going to be monitor only, which means you're going to have to measure for PFAS in the influent, in the effluent, and in your sludge, but you won't have a limit you're going to have to treat to. There's not really commercially available treatment technologies on the wastewater side because there's so many competing, compounds and organics in the wastewater, that carbon and ion exchange and some of those kinds of technologies that are used on the water side because it's cleaner, they just don't really apply for wastewater. So it's going to be monitor only on wastewater. PFAS in Westfield is likely coming from a lot of just, industrial sources, but also a lot of just residential type sources, people using Teflon pans and washing them in their sinks. People have, stain resistant carpet that has PFAS in it.
So there's a fair amount in our blood too.
Yes, it's right. Exactly. Yep. I'm a Westfield resident as well. So I know.
Yeah.
There's not capital projects in this plan that are geared towards treating PFAS in the wastewater at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, and I'm going to keep going just to get you guys under the time limit here. So the next thing we look at is revenues. And again, it's a big enterprise, so there's a lot of moving parts, including, the finances. Roughly 70% of your revenue comes directly from sewer bills. And we call that rate revenue because it comes from sewer rates. And then 30% comes from everything else. And we look at those things to project what we think the future might be. So everything in here, and while this is a financial plan, we are engineers, I'm an engineer, and we look at it in terms of projections and patterns and trends. And part of this as well is, informing the city where the money comes from and, that kind of thing, so that everybody understands what we've done, how we've done it, and what we looked at. So in here, your rate revenue is about 50% based on metered water usage, And 90%, 98% of your water customers are sewer customers, which is great because it really increases the equity and it helps keep your sewer rates low. So here we can see that this is the water usage by customer class. Commercial's about 40% of it, and residential is about 50% of it. Southwick's this little bubble up here, and then there's some small portions here. Currently, this part here, the residential, is not based on usage. We can talk about that, but this just gives an understanding of where the water comes from. And even though it's roughly 40% or maybe 50% with Southwick that gets based on usage, we want to understand where we think that usage is going in terms of trends, because it rarely stays the same. It's usually going up or going down. So we look at water use trends. And on the top line here, this is the drinking water totals that the city has to report every year to the state, what they use. So even though that's drinking water, not wastewater, it's still indicative of a trend. And then this bottom line is actually the 5 years, of data that we looked at, customer level meter data to get an idea of the trend here. It's going down. We're projecting about 3% a year. And that is important because when you look at, if your usage is going down, that portion of your revenue is going down. So that drives, will put upward pressure on rates going forward. Oh, and that, the water is all the users. And on the sewer side, those meters are basically commercial users, and some residential gets metered, like big apartments and such. And so now looking at projecting the revenues with the non-rate portion, it breaks down basically, as you see here, with septage being roughly $450,000 a year. Principal forgiveness and the IMA, those two costs are part of the debt. So the principal forgiveness is because you were using state revolving funds, they gave you, it's part of the deal, you get principal forgiveness. And then IMA is Southwick. It's their capital contribution. This is a standard situation where communities that discharge or bring their waste to you would pay a proportion of the capital costs. Both of those items go away in 2024 because the debt expires. So there's no more principal forgiveness because there's no more debt, and then there's no more IMA contribution because there's no more debt to pay off. And they both end with that loan payoff. Sorry, I have a habit of getting ahead of my slides. And if anybody's wondering, that IMA is around 4% of total revenue. So that revenue goes away, but so does the expense. And then the rest of it, there's system development charges, that's connections, those happen on a somewhat regular basis, and then just some random non-rate revenue, fees and interest and things like that. So now when we look at the net revenue is where we look to see, okay, we've got our rate revenue here. This is with the existing rates doing nothing, just staying where you are rate wise, and using that. You can see a slightly negative slope to that line. It's because that commercial use is going down. And what would happen is that the current rate structure and the usage projections and all that, if people kept doing what they're doing, basically at FY23, it would become unsustainable, or there's no good word for it, but crash. You would go negative and have to repay it from the general fund. So we look at then we have to adjust the rates to maintain the fund balance. And the existing rate structure, because we're talking about that, I just wanted to explain it basically. Residential pays a flat fee. Seniors pay a flat fee with a 70% discount. And then the commercial minimum, or basically low use commercial customers, it's a minimum charge, not a base fee. And then on top of that, you get the metered use, which is, again, mostly commercial. And then Southwick, they pay, also to dispose of their waste, just like not their waste, but their sewage. They pay like everybody else pays. And it's driven by the IMA. And it was about 15% below the commercial rate during the the IMA period. And there was some discussion in there or in the documents because they were paying for that, that debt. I believe it was supposed to be 10% plus or 10% over, excuse me, the metered rate. But at the last 3 years, it's been around 15% below that. We've projected that once that debt falls off, they'll go up to the 10% plus the commercial use, the metered use rate. And okay, so now looking at the existing rate structure and maintaining the fund balance, we've put together the following rate increases that basically it starts with a 10%. So this is across the board. When we apply rate increases, it's to every part of it. So it's the residential fixed, it's the senior discount rate, everything goes up by that same amount. And, you know, we track this revenue bar, we can see the revenue, we calculate the net revenue for each year. And by the way, you know, red is not necessarily bad, it's just a spend down. It's this yellow line where it's going down a little bit. And that is basically that.
Mike, I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's okay. Has there been consideration, it was part of one of the public participation letters, has there been consideration as to whether or not the residential rate should be tied to residential water consumption?
There was discussion about that in the beginning, and if anyone from the DPW wants to chime in, that'd be great. But basically the discussion was that when you go to usage-based rates, there's this like a paradox where in the summer your water use goes up quite a bit in the city. You know, just in general, all the water goes up, and that water doesn't go down the drain. You know, most of that increase in the summer. So you get into the situation where people are going to be charged to put, you know, for the water that you're watering your grass or you're you know, washing your car or whatnot, is gonna you're gonna be charged sewage for that. And my understanding is that's how you ended up with a flat rate as it is. I did look at you know, what the implications would be, and for a I looked at low user, medium user, and a high user. And for the medium user, which I set at the state's goal of 65 gallons per capita per day, it was about a wash if you went to the same rates that you use for commercial. For people that are using very little, it would potentially save money. And again, you know, we didn't look at would you have minimum charges and that kind of thing. But for the people that would be using more, and Westfield's water use, residential water use, is pretty high. If you looked at that use as a I want to call it a heavy user, but frankly, it's what got reported as the average was around 100 gallons a day per person. They would pay more. So that's really about the extent of that evaluation right now. We can talk more about that, but other Western Mass communities especially have dealt with this, that, you know, dichotomy of not wanting to pay sewer for non-sewer contributions. That makes sense?
I see that Engineer Crissati has a question too.
Hey,
You're
Mark.
muted, Mark. Unmute, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, the flat rate has been used throughout the history of the sewer billing here. And so first of all, part of the wisdom is that the flat rate gives you consistent revenues versus metered rate, which will fluctuate through the years, depending on if it's a wet or dry year or what have you, which makes your revenues then unpredictable and unstable. And then it's a change. And I trust that all civic leaders understand that all change is bad, and that if you try to do the good deed of actually, you know, being judicious and billing, again, no good deed goes unpunished. And it's what everybody has done and everybody anticipates. And yes, there's a bit of judicial issues there, but it's what's always been done. And again, it does serve the system as a consistent revenue source versus the flexibility, the volatility of meter rate. Thank you.
Thank you.
This slide here is also repeated at the end. These are the actual numbers, if you will, of the rates for the point when you want to vote on them, or when the city council votes on them, they can have the numbers here. Basically, it's just showing you're taking that rate and you're applying it across each aspect of that. We don't, I will note, actually, I saw in the motion that this residential rate has a capital component and another component. It's included in here, and we just looked at the total number as basically as the rate. So that's a quarterly rate, so multiply by 4. Then sorry, I can't get that picture thing out of my way. So once we do that, we also look at a modified rate, and one of the thing that we looked at was this senior discount. And the total customers receiving a senior discount is 1,308 customers or accounts, and that's about 15% of the total residential. The discount is 70%, or about $330,000 a year in discounted or lost revenue. And the question was, is that equitable? And, you know, one thing I could say is there's rules and guidelines and such for setting water and sewer rates, but largely it comes down to a community by community fit. And there's great latitude in what's out in the state right now. But, you know, we had heard that was a subject of discussion. So like all the things that we've done here, we look at it flatly, we look at the data, we present the data. So first to start is, well, you know, what do other communities do? And so there was a report written in 2019, Water Affordability Practices in 12 Massachusetts Communities. I pulled a quick summary out of here. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but it's roughly, you know, 10 to 20%, 25% based on a number of different variables. Most of them were age-based, and some had some income requirements too. So what we did was we looked at, instead of 70%, taking it to 50% and to see what that would look like. So basically go through the same thing, rebalance. This is an iterative process anyway, rebalance the rates to keep that yellow line in the range that we want. And then we'll look at what does the customer costs look like. So at the end of the day, if you're a decision maker and you're looking at this, people want to know dollars. Okay, like what is this going to cost? So we calculate and we look at the dollars from the whole period. And when we do the affordability analysis, we're looking at the whole 10-year period. And basically here, looking at your annual cost for residential customers, because that's typically who we look at, is we have the situation, alternative A is your existing rate structure, just increasing them like that. So you can see it goes up from $383 to the end, it would be $574. Same thing for the senior under your existing discount, goes from 127 up to 191. And then this total on the side is the total for the whole rate setting period. It's really a meaningless number unto itself, except that it gives you a quick understanding of what the difference is between alternatives, and that's why I do it. So just to get to the punchline here, if you changed it from 70 to 50%, it would save your typical residential customer $11 a year, and it would cost your senior customer $85 a year. And, you know, like so many of these things, what's really important to remember is this is a net sum zero game, that if you want those people to pay less, everybody else has to pay more. But it's when you look at the proportions is where you find things like this, where to save, you know, everybody $11, you're going to make those people pay $85. That's really our role here, is to present that and then let the city decide whether, to Mark's point, whether that's bad change or good change. You guys can look at that from there. So, but at the same time, you know, we have looked at it and we understand what that cost implication would be. The other thing that was requested, or that's always very common, is to look at, you know, how do we compare to other communities? It's helpful, and at the same time, it doesn't mean that much because it depends on what their situation is and what their expenses are, et cetera. But what we did was we looked through these peer communities: Pittsfield, South Hadley, Greenfield, Northampton, Springfield, and Chicopee. I looked at their rates over 4 years, 212, 214, 217, and 219. And then these lines here, these orange lines, are the average from the tie and bond rate surveys that we do. I want to say every other year, but we're a little behind right now. But anyway, you can see that Westfield was considerably lower than all of your peers. And even with, you know, the increases that we're looking at, you're not going to hit what was the average, you know, in 2017. So for what it's worth, you know, you do have low sewer rates, and that undoubtedly is due to Jeff's frugality and you know, ingenious solutions to save money.
Mike, Councilor Alley has another question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Councilor Alley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Mike, go back to the last slide. Those figures that you were in the last two, actually, were those are these quarterly figures that we're looking when you?
No, I'm sorry. These are annual costs.
Okay. All right. Nope. That's all right.
I think they were quarterly.
Yeah, sorry. I don't want to give anybody a heart attack.
No. It says annual cost on the left-hand side. It just, you can't move fast enough when you're looking at numbers. All right.
No. I always look at it as annual cost because that's how the affordability indicators are based too. It's, you know, it's just based on the total cost. So
that's geared to the quarterly ones.
Yeah, well, and that helps people understand, you know, what they're going to budget and pay. But when you're looking at like this, we're looking at it from an annual basis. And this is provided for context. There's you know, not one thing that says this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing. It's all data, and you accumulate this data, and then you make a decision based on the total of it. There's two primary affordability indicators that we use, and they're the two most well-known or common ones. We don't like to get into discussions about, you know, Starbucks coffee or pizza or Netflix or anything. These are industry standards. The first one is from the sewer separation days back in the 90s. It's the residential indicator, and it looks at cost of sewer as divided by the median household income, and declares it a high burden if it's 2% or more. So they came out with it in the 90s, and from the, you know, 1 year later until 2 years ago, people were not happy with that because they didn't feel that the median is a good indicator and such and so forth. So the second indicator was developed and has largely been adopted by EPA. And this is called the household burden indicator, which looks at the lowest quintile income. So it's the lowest percentile, the 20% threshold, if you look at all the incomes in your community. And it adds this second component, which is called the poverty prevalence indicator, which is the proportion of the town or the percentage of the community that incomes are at or below 200% of the federal poverty level, which is one of those, it's an indicator that people use, or the government uses rather, for assistance programs and things like that. So you look at, and these numbers are census data for Westfield. Your median was 67,000, lowest quintile is 29,000, and then the poverty prevalence is 23.5. So that puts you in this middle bucket. And then based on the median, the quintile income, even at the end of it at FY31, it's 3.5 So it puts you basically less than 7%, puts you in the moderate to low burden. And as you can tell, that's the bottom for the rates. This is based on rates. This is based on community that, you know, you start at moderate to low just because of that poverty prevalence indicator. And when you're in that lowest column there, it's not being driven by rates. It's being driven by the overall economics of the city. So basically that's it. And we hold a static lowest quintile. I don't escalate it because it's even more conservative. It's likely to go up at 1-2%, hopefully more over time. But to be more conservative, we leave it alone and look at it, you know, 10 years from now, it's still low or considered low. And that is, these are this was in one of the documents that Mr. Gamelli prepared, and it's to just give the council right there. They can see what the rates are that we're proposing. So that is the end of the presentation.
Mike, can you go back to that last slide?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And right at the bottom, I just want to, it's not on here, but the average annual increase for residential flat rate proposed is $30.59 a year. And the average quarterly bill increase for residential is $7.65 a quarter. And for senior residential rate, average annual increase, $10.21 a year. And average quarterly bill increase for senior residential rate, $2.55. And then, you know, so forth with commercial industrial with a price per gallon. But I just wanted to summarize that in a annual and quarterly average.
And it's important, Jeff, this is with maintaining the discount for seniors the same 70%.
Correct.
And Jeff, were you reading that off a previous slide, or is that a table that we can add to the minutes and give to the council?
That's in a table we can add to the minutes.
That would be great. Yeah, you can email me that and I'll make sure to send it to the clerk. And Engineer Corsati, did you have a question or comment to add?
Yes, just to reiterate what was presented there, that when he was talking about those median rates and so forth, those reflected then the recommended rate increases as Jeff's chart here. So thank you.
Thank you. And I sent an email out to everyone to ask whether or not there was a situation in place, a mechanism in place whereby if Westfield became the beneficiary of federal or state dollars for wastewater treatment, whether or not there was an option for our struggling residents to enter some kind of granted rebate situation. Is that something that Westfield has in place that is very difficult to put in place? That is, you know, that I'm thinking of a program like they did with the broadband and COVID, or, you know, something where the people that can, you know, show a financial hardship but paid their bills could then possibly rebate if the city were to find itself with extra money to cover what these rate increases would be paying. Anybody want to take that? Then I'll jump at once.
Madam Chair, I don't believe there's anything in place at this time, and certainly Fran can chime in as well. I would suggest that should something to that extent occur, it would be coming to the City Council, number one, for acceptance of those funds, and at that time the council could ponder how they want to deal with that as on an equitable basis.
Yeah, I'd agree with Mark. This is Fran. Yeah, there's nothing in place now, but you know, if something like that was to happen, that would be open for discussion, I guess.
To an indirect, and the $15 million in ARPA funds is a significant savings on rates, but it's across the board. You know,
I'm thinking of money that's in motion now federally. Do you know what I mean? There's some and future efforts from other places. But I just wanted to make sure that if, for example, when water rates increased in order to cover bonds, and then money is available in other ways to help reimburse that, it's not like those rates are going to end up coming back down for water consumers. And so I just wanted to know if you know, there were money coming down the pike for exactly this kind of thing, whether or not there was something we could do to help lift the burden on you know, that something like 42% of our residents are in EJ communities, and a lot of that is based on income. So it, you know, any extra for some people is very, very hard to do.
I will tell you, Madam Chair, that this is always a topic of interest, and this is primarily what I do. So there are a number of, you know, things that have been talked about with sewer rate assistance. What is currently existing is not generally that, doesn't usually work out that well. And I think the city already did apply for it and, you know, ended up getting a very little amount of money. But as the infrastructure money, the ARPA and all that, we pay attention to that, and, you know, would be more than happy to be calling up DPW to let them know that something was looking good or shaking loose. You know, there's lots of people that are interested, and you know, nonetheless, is us.
We'll be very interested in making sure that that is that we've got our finger on that pulse.
Yeah, watch out. You might get emails from me in the future, because I tend to remember who was you know, most interested in this kind of stuff.
I'm the girl who's looking for him, so you feel free.
Yeah, no, seriously, it's you know, everybody looks at it.
Before we close, there is some information that Mr. Gamelli needs to share with us. Yes, Jeff, you with us?
I'm here.
Okay. Did you hear back from the law department?
Unfortunately, by the time once I emailed her back, she had an auto response that she's out of the office tomorrow. So we do. So from my understanding, and Mark Crosati is very experienced and educated on this in the past, because Mark's been with us a long time. Unfortunately, will be leaving us soon. And I'm new, wet behind the ears when it comes to the whole legal process with this. That we do have the resolution, the draft resolution for the proposed rates for the city council to review and vote upon, but the law department suggests that we wait to vote upon the, you know, if there is a motion to vote upon the proposed rates, to wait due to the fact that the legal proper notification has not been sent to Southwick town administrator, notifying them of a proposed rate increase to be possibly voted on. But there was email correspondence between myself and the director of public works in Southwick a couple of weeks ago, actually like a month ago. But supposedly, you know, I guess legally there needs to be like an official letter and correspondence sent by our law department to Southwick notifying them. So that is, I think, in the nutshell, that's the information to share.
Thank you very much. So members of the committee, we need to request that it come out of committee and get tabled until next time, till next council meeting. Now the thing is, I don't know if that notification is going to be, because today is Thursday and our next council meeting is Thursday. And so I don't know if that means that we're going to need to request a special meeting for everything to get done in 1 year. Perhaps another counselor would like to speak to that. But because today is the 2nd and our next meeting is the 16th, I don't know how all of this will work out. Counselor Alley?
Are we not?
I think we could just make a recommendation out of the committee to the council and then just table it on the floor. I don't know that necessarily has to be a motion coming out of this committee, but.
Counselor Figgy?
Why don't you just leave it in committee and bring it out the next meeting?
The email from Shanna said that her assumption would be that it would come into the council and get tabled. So that is the only reason I brought it up that way. But if we'd like to leave it in committee, we could.
No, follow legal advice. If Shanna said to do it that way, do it that way.
Okay.
Perfect.
Wise man once said.
Well, see, this was, yeah, that's what I was thinking. So let's pull up the email so that we can know the exact correct wording. Pardon me while I squint around for a moment to find it.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this would be referred to finance though, correct? Eventually?
Well, theoretically, I
Well-
had thought it would be referred to L&O for the resolution part, but the law department said it could come straight out of our committee to the floor.
Oh, okay. I do have a question for Jeff.
Go ahead while I find the language.
Thank you. And thanks, Jeff, thanks everybody for being here. So Jeff, out of the sewer rates, or your budget, okay, for what you do there, and I guess this is perhaps a question for Fran Kane too, but are you not given enough money in your budget to operate, and now you have to increase the sewer rates for people because you're not projecting the money to be there in the coming budget? What I'm trying to get at is how much of your budget is coming from the rates and how much is coming from the city budget in your individual department?
All of our expenses are supported by the revenue from the sewer user fee structure. It's an enterprise fund, so.
Okay, yeah, so
We're not
100%.
supposed to be supplemented from the general fund or from the city fund.
And that's what I wanted you to say. Okay, so it's 100% from the rates, from the rate payers.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And Jeff, when someone goes to the water commission and has an abatement, do you still get your money from their bill, or does your abatement go with their abatement and you just lose your money too?
Are you an abatement like?
Is it right? It's a combined utility bill, right?
Loss of revenue.
Yes, it'd be loss of revenue if you abated the bill. Yes.
So when
Yes.
when people go to the water commission and they ask for an abatement, and it's because like the toilet was, or there was a leak in the pipe, or right, you know, the reasons that they go to the commission. When that happens, does Jeff's department lose their money too?
It's usually
If
just
so.
the water is what you're abating, not in the sewer's already been paid.
Yeah,
So
the
that
sewer is
is-
flat rate as well.
Yeah, and it's flat rate, so he's not losing anything.
So that it doesn't affect when a water bill gets abated.
In the sewer bill, yes.
Okay. So I did find it, and let me bring up what she said directly because I want to quote completely. It's from an email from First Assistant City Solicitor Reed this afternoon. It said, "I believe NRC is meeting tonight, and I assume the council will just be hearing this preliminarily, and the item will be tabled until this is ready for a vote."
That would be the
So I believe what Solicitor Reed is thinking is that one of you, because I can't attend the meeting, right, will sit there and say, we had this discussion, they gave this presentation, and we need to table the vote to next meeting because there's a notification date issue.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
we're tabling our vote?
no.
No.
We would recommend moving it to the council, and then with a recommendation that we table it concurrent of hearing from the legal department.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Motion
Yeah,
made.
table pending word from Solicitor Reed.
Okay.
that we can
Motion
move forward.
made, and it's 6:35.
Yeah, and can you guys hustle downtown?
We're gonna have to, like, we have a choice.
What? I don't have a choice. I got to stay here.
I'm not going to get there. I'm in Springfield right now.
Uh-oh. All right, so Dan, you're going to report it out, okay?
Yeah. So
Nick, make a motion for Dan to report it out.
do I hear a second?
Second,
The roll call vote, Counselor Alley,
Yes.
Counselor Morganelli,
yes.
and Counselor Mello says yes. Chris, did you want to say something else? Your hand was up.
Just a quick question on, is there any value in Ty and Bond attending the city council meeting tonight, based on what you're talking about here? We're certainly happy to support this at future meetings or whatever it takes, but just want to make sure we're there to support what needs to happen.
Once Counselor Alley says the word table, there's no more discussion. So, Counselor Alley, would you like, is there even a choice to be able for Ty and Bond to say anything in the middle?
Oh, no, yeah, I mean, because the motion would be tabled afterwards. We're recommending a table, but nobody's saying the word table at that point. So if they want to make the presentation tonight or,
Yeah, but they can't, right? Because Shanna's recommendation was that it would be this very preliminary thing.
are they already on the agenda? I mean, is this item on the agenda?
No, our item is on the agenda.
No.
Us reporting it out is on, but them reporting to the council is not.
Right.
I would like to request that the presentation that was given to us tonight be put on the share drive and alert the council that is going to be there. That's one thing we can do just so that they can get a look at it. I wish I had gotten a look at that before.
You have it.
Excuse
Well,
me.
it's recorded now, so.
Yes. Well, no, and you have it. You got it in email last week and previously, and it's on the share drive. Oh, that's good too. Nick, the city clerk made a folder for us.
Okay. Thank you.
It should be on the share drive. She said she did it, so it should be there.
Okay. As long as councils are aware.
And the letters are also there. And the letter from the mayor asking us to take it in is also there.
And to add to what I was saying, the presentation really does need an explanation. I mean, there's a lot of information on that on those slides. So it really does need to be explained. So when the time comes, we need to have that explained to the full council.
I agree completely, Councilor Morganelli. I think that it would be very advantageous for the rest of the councilors to hear from Chris and Mike and Jeff on that day.
More than happy.
Thank you.
Great, more than happy. So we won't attend tonight, but we're certainly stand by for whenever you're ready to have us, and we'll be there for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, if I can chime in one more thing, if I may, to Councilor Morganelli's point about the general fund.
Oh, wait, hang on one second.
Sorry.
Councilor Alley's got to go or he's going to
Okay.
miss the city council
I'm good.
meeting.
But you
Bye,
guys,
Councilor Alley.
Okay.
You are excused, sir.
Yes, to go.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I was just going to point out that with your situation where most of the city's on water and then most of the water customers are on sewer, there is no, except for ARPA, there is no free lunch, so to speak. It's if the general fund pays for part of it, the residents are still going to pay, but they're going to pay as a proportion of their assessed value of their home. And that's really what we look at is what you're paying in proportion, is your impact and your bill proportionate. So for example, when I look at communities that do have a partial general fund contribution, I also add the incremental levy and the tax that they would have to pay to that. And sometimes you say, well, we'll put 25% debt exclusion or whatever, and it brings down the rates, and then you add back the tax and it takes away some of that oomph, meaning that it is a closed system and they're going to pay, the city's going to pay, one way or the other. So it's not like that's a free money vehicle.
Have you ever looked, Mike, into what the Oxons had mentioned about maybe not making it a sewer discount, but a property tax discount? Have you ever seen how the numbers work out that way?
There is the circuit breaker provision. If you pay more than 10% of your income for tax water and sewer, you can get an abatement from that. That's an existing state program. I'm not 100% up to, speed on exactly how it works out, but there's a bunch of data available online.
I would love the reference to that if you can find it.
Yep.
That
I
would
will
be great.
send it to you after.
That would be great. So is there anything else we need to cover in this meeting tonight?
Pretty much out of time, Madam Chair.
Well,
Madam Chair,
the people who had to leave left, and so now it's just us.
I can't leave, then you can't close the meeting. It remains open perpetually.
That's
Indefinitely.
That's all right. That that would be the kind of thing I'd be interested in. But let's take this out. Dan is going to report it out at City Council, so you and I better tune in to make sure he does it right. And I will stay in touch with Jeff and Mike and Fran and Shanna. And if we need to call another meeting real quick, we can. And if we don't, we'll all be in touch about when it can come into the council, okay?
will you be voting a recommendation for or not?
Personally, I am voting a recommendation for.
Well, as far as the committee though, typically the committees come up with a recommendation for, and then you could table, but usually you have a finding from the committee.
Nick, Dan already left.
Yeah, understood.
So there's that.
Yeah.
But I can send something to the chair. Nick, what is your recommendation?
Well, I'm not going to make a motion to that effect. There was already a motion to bring this to council and table it.
And table, yes.
And table it. So, we did not give a recommendation. We gave a recommendation to table.
So will the committee need to meet again?
What's that, Mark?
Does the committee need to meet again is Mark's question. I think it's parliamentary. I think I would, quite frankly, check with Dave Flaherty and Rick Sullivan.
I think we probably have to, well, when is this coming? This isn't in tonight's agenda though, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
It is. Okay. So, so it'll be tabled tonight and then we'll wait to hear from law, and we would have to meet perhaps next week or
the thing is,
before the next council meeting and bring it out at the next meeting, which would be on the 16th.
Yeah, Mark, the thing is, because Southwick doesn't have the notification and there are a couple documents that are involved.
I appreciate that. I would have thought though that the committee would have voted one way or the other and then brought it to the floor and saying that based on law's opinion, you're going to table it. However, you did
we can't vote on it, Mark. We don't have all the information from law.
Yeah, law's opinion is that it's not ready to be voted on.
I'm not ready to vote on it.
Okay.
I fully support what the department needs to do and the way we need to do it. But if law turns around and says, this can't happen because these steps need to be taken in this order, then I can't vote yes to that. Do you know what I mean? Like I need approval on the process to approve the actual recommendation, and NRC can't do that when law says to hold.
There a time crunch on when this has to get through council? When is that?
In order for the rates to be billed, it needs to be done by your next meeting.
So why is this just coming to us now?
I think it's the timing of everything. Just the timing between elections and the timing, because I think the Water Commission voted it a month or so ago. So
Water Commission voted in October.
Things have to get done. They have to get done sooner than this. It can't be that this committee hasn't met and then this committee hasn't met and now the council can't meet in time. This can't happen again. Everybody that's on this call, I want you all to know this can't happen again. So let everybody else know that's in the line that this should not happen again.
Yeah, we did try to meet on this.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
I just say the only thing that held this up was just a simple IMA notification to Southwick. And the ordinance is all set for review. It's just only Southwick IMA. It's only 6% of our revenue, and that's the only thing that's held this thing up. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jeff.
Jeff. Yeah, it's a technicality, Nick. I'm sorry, but I only found out about it at like 4:00.
See you.
So I guess, do I second a motion when there are only two of us? Motion to adjourn made and seconded. Roll call vote. Counselor Morganelli
Yes.
and Counselor Mello says yes. So thank you everyone for the presentation. I appreciate your willingness to answer
Thank you all.
questions.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you for the time and dedication. And we'll meet again soon.
Sure, we'll
Thank
see
you.
you soon.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
Good night.